some information we want to share. Dale Brinkley and I are going to share a couple updates, and then we're going to turn it over to Ed with the next piece of their work for our school system. So, board members, if you're ready, Dale, I'll let you go ahead and start with yours, and then I'll follow with mine. Okay?
Good evening, board members. I appreciate the opportunity to share updates on the Braxton Craven demolition project. Just to give you a little background, we reached out to DPI School Planning back in May of 2024, and they directed us to complete a cost and feasibility report. There is a formal process when you want to either do new construction or demolition of a school building. So we completed that cost and feasibility report that included pictures of the facilities as well. Submitted that in June of 2024, and school planning, they reviewed that report, and then also the State Historic Preservation Office reviews that information. We heard back from them in August of 2024, and basically they sent us a letter and gave us approval to move forward with the demolition project. Last October of 2024, we submitted an RFQ for architectural services. We actually had quite a bit of interest and submissions on that. We did that solicitation through the state procurement site. And the committee, we had a selection committee, we reviewed all the requests for qualifications. And then the committee narrowed it down to the top selections. We interviewed those architectural firms. They came in, answered questions, did presentations, and we selected Smith Senate in December of 2024. And that advertisement was for new construction and or renovation buildings in our school system. So that took us to the spring. We did a contract with Smith Senate. Started that in April. They basically are doing the design for the demolition process. That also includes the erosion control, stormwater runoff during the project. They also brought in Frank Land Design. They came in May or June, excuse me. And the first thing they did was we had to do a survey of the property and have that on record to make sure we were within the boundaries of what was recorded and all the work was being done on the Braxton Craven project and on the property lines. So Frank Land Design also helped. We had to do applications for permits for erosion control and stormwater control measures. That is submitted to North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. Sometimes that does take a while. We were a little concerned about how long that might take. I am happy to say they only came back with one issue that Frank Land Design was able to correct quickly and resubmit. They have approved both of those permits. So we were pleasantly surprised and pleased with the window of time that it took to get those approved. So we do have those in hand and can move forward. Also in August, 25 Asbestos Inspections LLC, they were contracted to come in and do an inspection on the Braxton Craven facilities for asbestos and lead paint. And they did have some findings of those two items. They provided a report in September of 2025, and so we have that information and we know what needs to be abated within the buildings. So Smith Senate, they advertised in Greensboro News and Record requests for proposals for contractors that would be interested in the actual demolition of the buildings or the facilities. And there was, they also provided drawings of the plans for what would need to be done on site during the demolition of 10/27/25. And then there was a mandatory pre-bid meeting on 11/4/25 at the Braxton Craven site. All contractors that were going to submit a bid had to attend. And Larry Chilton, myself, Smith Senate and Frank Land Design were all in attendance for that as well. They were able to ask questions toward the facilities and get a closer first-hand look at what would need to be done at the site. And they also were able to follow up questions from the drawings that the architect had provided. So those proposals are due by this Thursday, and we will actually start reviewing those proposals this Thursday. They had about a 3.5-week window to get those in for us to review. And what we're hoping is to have those reviewed in December and have a contract with someone to do the actual demolition in January. What we expect is the demolition part will take around 3 months, and then the grading and planting of seed will take around a month. Excuse me, demolition and grading will take about 3 months, and then the planting of seed will take about a month to let that get in place and actually grow and see, the progress of that. And then hopefully final completion will begin in June, or will be done in July. So, again, weather could affect that, it being during winter months, but that is the preliminary schedule. So, do y'all have any questions on where we're at and what that schedule is for the demolition?
When you take it down, like, dress it up a little bit, or,
That's their job. When we contract with them, you mean the land?
I'm
The
talking,
seed, the
yeah,
land? That'll be the contractor's
that'd be a
responsibility.
separate one, though.
No, that'll be with the seed and all that's gonna be part of the contract.
Yeah, so they'll do some grading, and then also planting the grass seed as well, to get a good stand of grass back in place where there's just dirt, where there'll be just dirt.
So actually where the buildings were,
Yeah.
or
yeah,
are, and
yeah.
that part will be seeded and grass. So eventually down the road, if we wanna, we could pave it later on.
Yeah.
To make it.
And what they're gonna try to do is,
Should be rock.
where there's kind of a, it's like a basement area that goes up and then backfilled up to that basement.
Mm-hmm.
They're just gonna try to gradually slope that down
Just slope
to
it
the
down
lower
so it
part,
Sort of
the bottom
drain.
of the two-story is.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Like on the backside,
Yeah.
kinda.
Or
Or the basement.
Yeah, there is basement
Yeah.
over there.
And I was gonna mention too, that the project does include the demolition and removal of the mobile units on the site as well.
It's gonna look so good.
So it's really a drop in there if you ever try to fill it.
Mhm.
Yeah, they'll probably have to bring in some dirt to get the right, where it's not just
Slope.
drop off for
Mhm.
a bank.
No, you can get some.
I was going to
I was gonna maybe take the same
I might get some
thing.
field.
Where you get all the dirt you want. We'll have to travel far.
We need somebody from Village Road.
Jim stay?
Yes.
Bring
Yes,
it from,
Jim will stay.
bring it from the other side.
Jim's the only thing stupid about these land.
It was on that, wasn't you, Fred? You were thinking,
Yeah, we're thinking alike.
me and Fred, trouble.
Any other comments or questions? All right, thank y'all very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Did you ever teach there? You never taught there,
I
did you?
did. When they were doing the renovation of Trinity Elementary.
So
they
you
moved us
wanna,
up there
do you wanna walk through when they do a walk
Yeah, I
through?
told Dr. King I did.
Yeah.
I told Dr. King I
And
did.
board members, just so you know, we've been told by the architects to get the walkthrough done sometime between now and Thanksgiving, so Dale's trying to work on that. There's several people that want to go through, and so Dale's been working on that and hadn't got it scheduled yet, but I've got both of y'all's names on the list, so board members, if you have that interest, let us know, because, once we get past Thanksgiving, don't know
Right.
what's timetable they'll be on in particular. We're not gonna stop them. Couple things, just wanna share with you a couple things. This first, I wanna share your scheduled events. I shared it with you last time. You see in red the new, the change on the May 18 event, because we moved our board meeting up to 6 o'clock. Now, next thing, real reason, any questions about the scheduled events? The real reason what I wanna talk to you about today is what I'm gonna hand you. And I'm gonna move through this But I want to get this out and make sure everybody knows, and I know we've had a lot of information about schools, and we'll have some more information about schools here in a minute. But I want to make sure that we're all on the same page about one school that's been a concern for a while with enrollment. So I just want to walk through this with you and just kind of give you an update on the Warren Ridge 612. So I'm not going to read this word for word, but I do want to point out some things. School opened as a middle school, capacity was 660, but item number 2 is very important. The water sewer system on that campus will not allow us to increase that capacity above 660. So we can't bring trailers, mobile classrooms, and we cannot do additions. If it ever grew past 660, we could not go past 660. So, a little bit of history. Back when it was a middle school, the enrollment continued to decrease. There you see the last May that it was a middle school, May of 17, there was 339 students there in grades 6 through 8. That led to a decision by the board. We brought a proposal in January of 17 to the commissioners, you may remember that in our joint meeting, and asked them if they helped fund the conversion of that school from a 6-8 school to a 6-12 school. And I'll get to this in a minute, but what we asked them for was $410,000 because of various things that had to happen, including technology, and I'll speak to that in a minute. And if you recall, the commissioners did not wait till May to approve that, or June. They asked me to come to their next meeting and they approved that. That was one of our budget requests. Some highlights. And by 2021, we had all 4 high school grade levels there. We did 1 grade level per year. Highlights, when I talked about this project, I mentioned 4 big highlights back then and every time since. We had 1 high school grade level added per year. We capped each one at 75 students. We had to because we had about 330 kids there. We couldn't just bring as many high school students as we wanted to because of that capacity issue. Also, the school system was the school system's first one-to-one technology school. That was a big part of the request from the commissioners. There were 3 schools of study: leadership and communication, public service, and technology design. And just to be very transparent, we struggled with that for several years about what it meant to be in leadership and communication, what it meant to be public service, and what it meant to be technology and design. We struggled with that. And another big feature was we started out with an after-school activity bus that was going to be providing access from the high school students to go to the to Southwest High, which is where they would have been had it not been for this project. They would have been there, things to participate in athletics, march, and band. I want to just say this, a lot of things were said in those days. This project at no point affected Southwestern Randolph High School's placement as a 3A or 2A school. When this project happened, it was in between realignment. So I was actually looking back at my notes because I dealt with that several times. But here was a key part of this. When we looked at this, one of the selling points of this project was we were adding 300 high school seats to Southwest Zone. We were also keeping 300 middle school seats from city vacant. So, and what a lot of people may not know, may not remember, is at the time, when I got here, when I came in 2013, the plan after Wheatmore High School and Providence Grove High School was to build a high school in the Southwest Zone. Now we look back, it's good we didn't, and we weren't to replace Southwest, it was to build one. And look there at the bottom, it was, at that time in January 17, when this plan first hit the public eye, Southwest was our most crowded school at 104%, and the only school to have more trailers or mobile classrooms was Randleman High School, has 21. The second most was at Southwest High. So here was a selling point, I think, in the presentations. We asked for $410,000, and we compared that to building a $40 million high school. What we love for a high school, it only costs $40 million now. But that's what was the going rate of high school. So just as a point of little history here, this was the second project that we had gone to the commissioners for a little bit of money and addressed overcrowding. Remember at the end of 13-14, we asked the commissioners for $185,000 to move fifth grade from Randall Elementary, which at the time was 128% full, to Randall Middle, which at the time was about 68% full. So we have these two creative projects going on. So I want to just move to where we are and why I wanted to update you on this and make sure we stay current with what's going on at UR Ridge. So the early days of UR Ridge, we're doing well. First year we had a grade 9, we went from 339. In the 16-17 year to 396. The next year we had a grade 10, 444. We had 507 students on that campus, and we had not even added the senior class yet. So we had increased by 168 students by the third year of the project compared to the last year it was a middle school. So it looked like maybe and so I'm sharing this with you because this project worked for capacity and it worked for kids. But now what I'm going to show you is where it's beginning to go backwards and we're not using the facility as much as we need to be. So the year we had the senior class, it dropped back to 485. And all these numbers are October 1 numbers. That's what I mean by that. It's October 1 of that school year. About time we got to a good, had to have some constant where was our number. But then look what happens. The past 5 school years, enrollment numbers have continued to decrease. And that's a pretty strong decrease. Just in these 5 school years alone, that's 109 student decrease. But it also, by the time we got to this year, which is 369, we're now 138 students on that campus less than we had in the big year of 1920, which was when we got to 507. I don't know. Andrea was principal there. I'm not sure 507 is not the highest number of students that's ever been on that campus in a single year. I assumed all along when we started down this road with this project in the 16-17 year, again, remember we shared it with the commissioners and with you in January of 17, the idea of it. I assumed all along that it must have filled up and then started dropping off. But the more I have researched and talked to people, it never filled up to the 660. So, and let me say this to you as you're thinking about this. The 660 is not just students. The 660 is permanent people on the campus. So when they say our water sewer system won't allow us to have more than 660, you got a lot. If you have 507, you got to have a difference between 507 and 660 to be. And it's a pretty interesting water sewer system. It is interesting to say the least. And I'm not a wastewater person, but I've certainly talked to Larry Chilton many times about different situations in our school system and this one. So when we get to this year, 369, and we're 30, within 30 of where we were in May of 17. The last May, it was a middle school. So we dropped all the way back, and at 369, we've dropped 138 students off that high number of 507 in 1920. So the other thing I wanted to just point out, 369, so where's the relief coming from? Well, we've, as you know, and they're here today, we've engaged with ORAD, Institute for Transportation Research and Education, North Carolina State University, and guys, I don't ever know what to call you, ORAD, or that big long name, I like calling you ORAD, because that's how I ran into this group way back. That was the term. But 369, and you saw last week, or last month, they showed you some projections. So I just want to make sure that we're all looking at these projections and we're all focused on these as we make decisions, because, and I'm not here to make any kind of recommendation, I'm here just to update you on a topic that many board members have been asking about for many years. So the next 10 years, after 25, 26, 369, and here's the projections of the number of students that are going to be in that school. So 35, 36, we're 49 more in backwards from where we are this year. So I just felt like as we're talking about school facilities and how are we using them. And we're talking about different issues that come with facilities and dealing with some other issues in budgets. I just wanted to make sure these were at the forefront of our conversations. This looked great, but this all the way down, we're not even out of 300s for the next 10 years after this year. We're already in the 300s now. So lastly, because I had a lot of colleagues that were involved in this project, including myself, but a lot of colleagues got a chance to dream and do dreaming about what this project was gonna look like. So I do wanna point out some things that have happened since we kicked this off in the 17-18 school year, because there have been some special actions taken. Number one, I mentioned the high school athletic piece. If we hadn't done that, those high school students would have gone to Southwest anyways. So we tied them to Southwest. They didn't have enough high school students to be a standalone member of the North Carolina High School Athletic Association. There's other options. You can take, like, you can go to like early college and you could say, we'll let them go back and play with their school, but when they go back, it's not just kids who are playing, it's every kid from that school counts in their numbers. You can have them stand alone, or you can tie them to a school. We chose to tie them to Southwestern Randolph High School for athletics and for marching band. And then we got into the third year, where the first senior class was juniors, and I did point this out as a point of reference. November 18, 2019, Board of Education voted that effective at the start of the 21-22 school year, we would no longer have athletics for the high school students in Roy Ridge. Again, there were not enough kids to have a standalone athletic program. Now, what anybody listening, I want to make sure they understand the board took this action with a lot of sensitivity. And you see they voted on November 18, 2019, and they consciously decided they wanted to make it all the way out to the first four-year class could at least have athletics like was promised in the original deal. So, some other things have happened, just as a picture. Some are positive, some are not positive because they didn't stand. Light duty diesel, David Cross in the back of the room, we were so excited we got light duty diesel. And we tried it for 2 years, enrollment did not sustain that. We've had some 3 new career and technical education pathways, starting 24-25, they are still there. The drone program, we were excited. David, if I remember right, drone was first at Roy Ridge. And started in 1920, we held on as long as we could. Into 23-24, again, enrollment in that program, we could not sustain the program. You know what we put in for this year? It's the first time we've ever transported students from one school somewhere else and back during the day. Plumbing, collision repair, photography. We did not get photography to go, there wasn't enough interest. But I also want to show you, we had 7 seats from the community college set aside for plumbing and 10 for collision repair. And those are big areas. They're going to the Richard Petty facility. And you can see right there, we're barely over half the seats used. And then David worked really hard with community schools, done a lot of great work there. Starting last year with career focused framework, with some on-site job fairs, field trips that were aligned with industry, reality store event is there. But so the first 2 pages are just really facts about this project, where the school was before the project, where it's been since the project. I call it the project because the first time I presented it, I called it the Uwharrie School Project, is how I presented it. The name came later after we made the decision, or the board approved the decision to go here. But also, I don't want to forget the work. I see Beth Davis back there did a lot of stuff, a lot of work in that school during the early days, and I'm missing somebody else that shouldn't even call David or Beth out. But I know Tammy was middle school director these days, spent a lot of time out there. Dana spent time out there as high school director. So, but I did want to mention there were some special things that were done. There was a lot of attention at times on things. Let's do something no one else has, like light duty diesel. No one had that, but Uwharrie. Drone program, no one had it, but Uwharrie. Yes, it's moved on to some other places. It's not really grabbed too much attention, but it surely wasn't making it at URI. And obviously no one's doing that, and no one gets that opportunity of driving to and from the community college transportation provided. It's the only school doing that. So I want to go back to when we stopped the athletic piece. That was announced within days. I have the email for the following, maybe it was even that night. I got the email where Brian Hodgin and Brian Hill were notified immediately, because we wanted to make sure that was out as soon as possible. So it went out. I have emails where I communicated with my North Carolina High School Athletic Association, telling them to make sure they didn't count URI's numbers, URI Ridge's numbers anymore in Southwest Randolph's high school numbers in the next realignment. So I give you that, and just wanted to give you an update on URI Ridge. We've talked about it and a lot in last couple of months, either you talking to me individually or some comments in board meetings. I just want to let you know where we are here as we've just passed day 40 for the 2025-2026 school year. Let me look at some other issues throughout the school system. Any questions for me? Obviously, this is a concern of mine. This is a concern. 369 students, we got it up there to 507. Now we're back almost where we were. Now with 7 grade levels, we're almost back where we were before. So this is a concern of mine. And I think the research that's been done so far points to the projections and where it's not the school size.
The projections from ORED there, do we have that broken out by grade?
We can provide that.
I don't think I have. You mean for the future?
Yeah,
those
I mean,
next
you
10
don't,
years, yeah.
it don't have to be for everyone, I'm just kind of curious, like, just take, something 5 years later, 10 years later, something like that, so.
What is the percentage of high school kids versus middle school kids now? Because those numbers are not a lot different, projection-wise, right?
Isn't it like 140 some, if it was like for high school?
I think I would have to look back at my stuff from last year. I hadn't done the breakdown. Anthony, you have it?
Off the top of my head, I can see it.
Because the numbers stay pretty consistent over the
Some
next 10
reason.
years.
If I'm going off memory, when I pulled it last December,
Exactly.
I want to say the high school numbers were smaller than middle school, but I'm just thinking off memory. 147.
That would make sense.
Yeah, 147 sounds like the high school number last year in December, but don't quote me on that.
So it looks like you go back to when it first started. And, at 507, that's the kind of the number you were hoping would hold. And just gradually, it don't look like it's coming back.
I think, there's another number, actually I do have it, sorry guys, I do have this. Sorry, I got it right here. All right. 34 and, okay, 9th and 10th grade, 77 right now, and 11th and 12th is 59, so 77 and 59 is 16, 136, is that right? Is that right? Yes, sir. All right. All right, middle school right now is 1130, 233, I think, it's 74, 77, 82. 233. What was the first number again? I need to add that back up. You want to test my math again? 136 and 233. So if you want to go to last year, let's go there real quick, Anthony. Middle school looks like 78, 86, 82. That's 168. 246 is middle school last year, and then high school was 106 plus 22 is 108. It's 108 plus 36 is 144. So I was off a little bit, Mr. Lanier. I had to have 147 on my high school. Check this out, Anthony. Check my math real quick. I said, what did I say, what did I say, 138?
For high school this year?
No, last year, 6, 8, 14, 10, 11, 13, 16, 164 maybe. Check it out. Here we go, maybe my math's off. 55, 51, 22, 36.
What year did the charter school open?
164. It opened in 13, 14.
When did Ashboro Hybrid open, like down toward farm, thing? Wonder if that had anything to do
The
with some of
charter
those numbers?
school opened my first year here, 9 and 10, 9 through 11. And then when they added grade 12, they added 6, 8, and 12. I can't remember if that was my second year or my third year. They had a little bit of staggering. Then they put in 5th by themselves, if I remember right, and then K4 all came at once. So Anthony, let's go back. We've got middle school last year, 78, 86, 82. That's last year, December probably. No, October 1. 246 middle school, and then high school was what? 55, 51, 22, 36. 246, 164, that was October 1 of 24. And now this year, it's, what are the numbers for middle school? Let me give it to you again.
I got PMR month 2.
I've got this off October 1.
Yeah, I can do it.
74, 77, 82,
233.
233, and then high school was 34, 43, 37, 20.
137.
137 and 2 what?
33.
233 and 137. So I think maybe that might have been, it's breaking, the high school's not following along, you know. Well, and here's something else we can compare if I got, maybe if it goes back as far. So what did I tell you was the 507 years, 1920? Okay, Anthony, look here. I don't know why I've been making y'all do that. I've got another section. High school 171 in 1920, October 2019, and middle school is 336. High school's highest it ever got, that's ever been, is 194, and that was in October of 2020, 194. So middle school's been carrying it all along. Problem is now, middle school has gone ahead and dropped under 300, and they were 300 all along, and 291, 280, 289, back over 300, now they're coming on down, 278, 246, 233. So we're not getting the fill in for middle school, but, so any other questions about this report, these numbers? Oh, Ms. Burgess, I didn't realize I had them right here. Got the chart. And then read the chart. I'll make you a copy of it. I'll get y'all a copy of that. Just know that the 19, or the year number at the top is the October of the school year. So this got you to 19 is October 19. Okay, at this point, Dale, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, board members, Beverly and Sheena are going to hand out maps. We've got 3 different maps, and there's multiple sets, so you can hopefully just a couple of them shared. And looking at those maps for your review, you should also have handouts of the last board meeting reports that they already went over, as well as a subdivision list. All of these documents have been put in a Google Drive, and that was shared with you before the board meeting. And I just want to welcome Mr. Palmer, Mr. Dudley, and Mr. Godfrey back tonight. They shared at the October board meeting information about maps, housing developments, and growth or non-growth projections. And I just want to, hopefully the information they're sharing tonight will help you in future planning. And I just want to say it's been a pleasure working with these guys during this process. So, Mr. Palmer, Mr. Godfrey, and Mr. Dudley, I'm going to turn it over to you.
campus here in Ashboro, and really wanted to walk through with you where we are with some of the feedback that we got from the board members, as well as best practices here in North Carolina for planning for schools. So with that, let's go to the next slide. Dale, can I control this? There we go. All right. So, as I mentioned, review with the board planning for schools in North Carolina. Some feedback from you all with the board member pulse check that we had with regards to your values, issues, and priorities. And again, best practices, and here for any questions and next step conversations. There's three of us here tonight, but our school planning and transportation team at NC State is one of the largest in the country. We love the work we do and we lead with passion. I think it's something to share with you all in regards to the mission of serving children here in North Carolina. I won't go through the names, but a lot of folks, many of which have over 20 years experience in public education, with a similar mission and charge of what you all do. As Mr. Brinkley mentioned, we are at NC State's campus on Centennial. And you're welcome to come by for lunch anytime you want. We'll do a walking tour of the Hunt Library and some of the, I'm sure there's some Tar Heel and Duke fans here too, but you're welcome at NC State anytime. In 1982, the governor of Mississippi had a quote that just stuck with me for my whole career. Now, I didn't start my career in 1982, but when I read it, it really just stayed with me. Right? Why do we do this work? Because the pathway out of poverty and the opportunity that this country affords really does start with you all, with public education and our excellent educators, instructors, and school leaders. So I want to thank you all for your work here in Randolph County. We've got some unique challenges in North Carolina. 950 folks move here every single day. That's what the state demographer is telling us, right? And they're coming from really all over from the pandemic onwards. And I know we talked last time about the growth in Randolph County. And one of the unique things we've got is that there's areas in the county that you're growing substantially, and there's areas in the county that are getting older, and both coexist in one county. It's your all responsibility, of course, to weigh those things out, to align your resources with your kids and your students. We don't have a state budget for school construction. That would be wonderful. Nor do we have a federal budget for that. That's a challenge. I'm naming it for the room. That includes operating and maintenance of our facilities. That's the local matter here in North Carolina. The district working with the county, any bonding you may want to be doing for your improvement of facilities has to be in coordination with those county commissioners. If someone wants to come in and build a neighborhood next to a fully filled up school already, its utilization is 100%, we can't stop them. There's no SAPFO or school adequate public facility ordinance here in North Carolina. Orange County has one, but they're kind of winding that down. So we would call that concurrency, saying, if this neighborhood's gonna bring 500 students, is there room in the schools? And if not, what's the plan? We don't have that leverage point here. And we can't levy impact fees if there's gonna be 500 students coming out of the neighborhood. Some folks have tried to do a per student kind of proration on that to build up your capital and inventory. We can't do that either. So I'm sorry to bring all of that sort of, feel like the weatherman here telling you a little bit of the challenges we have, but also the opportunities. First and foremostly, this state is the largest supporter of public transportation for school students in the country. Many folks don't realize that in the majority of the country, you don't have the level of support at a state level for the yellow buses, and especially in a rural county, that's a big deal. In addition, this is Randolph County school system. Right? In Montana, there are 6,000 school districts, if you can believe it. In California, there are 1,015. In North Carolina, we have 115. These county school systems are robust. Now, they're big, but they also afford you certain opportunities that you couldn't do in smaller districts. I think that's a real asset for our state. We do have public lottery funds for capital investment. Of course, those are merit and needs-based, and there is a lot of competition out there because we've got old schools across the state. And then lastly, just one of the things I want to point out, about a week ago, we had 50 folks from across North Carolina to our offices in Raleigh to be part of the first ever national conference on this. There are folks from quite literally Murphy to Manning that are thinking about the exact topics that you're thinking about. So I want to encourage you to just recognize that Board of Education members, you're not alone in this. There are folks all across North Carolina trying to wrestle out these hard decisions. Some of our work tonight is to echo back what we're hearing so that we can bring the very best recommendations to you all as we move forward. One of the things, we'll talk a little about what an education facility master plan is, but it's really braiding together your student assignment plan with your facilities. When you do that, you can leverage time, money, and impact. You can do more good by making sure when we turn dirt that it's going in the right place. If we're going to renovate a school, is that the one that we really need to be renovating? Because there's going to be a lot of needs. We try to help bring and bridge together the community supporters, particularly at the county level, with you all as Board of Education leaders and members. ORED, which we've referenced tonight, I guess, Dr. Gainey, that is the preferred of all the NC State acronyms. Thomas and Brian do truly some of the best work in the country on student enrollment forecasting and projections. You've got rock solid enrollment trend data to tell you, planning forward, where are we with our students over the next 10 years? That's a great first step. TIMS, many of you are familiar with, that's the state school bus routing platform system. That's also on our team within NC State. So Kevin Hart and our group support our TIMS bus route operators all over North Carolina. One of the benefits there is that when we're talking student assignment, we can also talk transportation efficiency. The team that I lead is in facility planning, and what we are doing is very much mindful of the conversations you all are having about where are our school facilities, what conditions are they in, and what do they need to do for our students, not only from the past 50 years, but for the next 50 years. Big picture, we're trying to bring together 3 strands: people, programs, and places. People are obviously your students. The programs, we have elementary, middle, and high school, CTE, EC, ESL, AIG. We could go down the list of all the things that you're needing to be thoughtful of. And the places, those school facilities, and where they're located. Big question: why should we be thinking about student assignment and facilities together versus separately? There's at least 8 big points we want to bring up. But number 1, supporting the community vision, and especially as locally elected officials in your seats, that community vision comes through your eyes and your words, and so it's helpful to hear, as we'll talk about in a second. Providing spaces for the educational programs. We can have hopes and dreams, but we've got to have a plan to make sure those things come to fruition. We can go through these one by one, but ultimately right-sizing the district in accordance with your student enrollment and your operational needs at the district level. So now rolling into the board member feedback. What did we hear from you? I'm going to walk through the challenges or issues that we understand you've observed based on the last presentation and your experience and perspective. Guidance as we're bringing you recommendations and the top priorities looking forward. So the very top issue that was outlined here, and this is, we intentionally want to thank the board members for all participating in this, that make sure that we have everybody pulling together, and you can see right at the very top, student population shifts. Right, that over the last few years, students have moved and or those that are choosing Randolph County schools. That has evolved, but buildings don't move themselves. Right? In addition to that, building utilization. These were the top 2 vote getters as far as the issues that we were trying to address. So moving demographics and building utilization, that enrollment capacity number. Next issue to address, facility conditions and making sure that our buildings are ready for 21st century learning. Older buildings are harder to work with the modern ways that we teach in public education. And so ensuring that we've reviewed that from the perspective of the modern needs in the classroom and in the schoolhouse. In transportation, there's awareness from the board on the issues about bus driver recruitment and retention. Unfortunately, that is a shared pain across the country right now. Right? Particularly for dual employment, that's even more so because we're asking them to do many things. Those were the 2 top vote getters in regards to personnel and operating expenses. The student ride times, now you'll see the average here 3.71, but it got 4 top votes. So being mindful in a large district like Randolph County, you've got to get students all over the map. The longer those ride times are and the more complicated they are, the more it's gonna put on your drivers and the more drivers you need. We've had districts go in over a summer and close a school and learn they needed 30 drivers on the other side of it. So being mindful of these trade-offs as we go. I'll bring that together for you, the top issues that we heard from you all. Shifting student populations and a low building utilization rate. Talk some about that with Mr. Dudley's added capacity table. Remember, that's the one with the colored boxes over 10 years. In addition, making sure that the academic programs fit into your buildings, how you're going to be teaching in the years ahead, and those ongoing facility operating and maintenance expenses. I asterisked that one in addition to the first two because at the very end, when we asked for your priorities, that came back up. And as we look at this work, recognizing that transportation has a state allotment for transportation and the local contributions, balancing out those expenses while retaining and recruiting drivers in those long bus rides. If this feels like a big jigsaw puzzle, it is one. And I say that because this is very much why we're here. Student assignment, facilities, transportation, these topics all connect in the overall experience that your students or families face. In addition to the issues, we also wanted to capture a sense of your values. Right at the very top, ensuring balanced student populations in schools and maximizing the use of your current buildings is very important. But the most important thing that we heard, and I want to name it and really applaud you all, is ensuring you have every school being a safe school and healthy schools for your students. Those are at the very top of your facility conditions concerns. When we can and how we can, maximizing the funding by reducing operating and personnel costs where fiscally responsible, and creating the most efficient bus routes when possible as well. So as with the issues, the values, the things we care about, we heard balancing populations and maximizing those seats, ensuring safe and healthy schools, and being efficient with your buses. So we can put those together on the issues and values side to get to the priorities. Number one, student population shifts, that students have moved, facilities haven't, we balance out those populations and maximize building utilization. At the same time, ensuring that we're focused and aware of which schools reflect back those values and priorities around safety and health. And balancing your operating and maintenance budget while reducing costs to increase additional funds for other investments in the district and your students. This is sort of the top 6 best practices sequentially that we would think about when doing this integrated work. Starting at the top, making sure that the board, the county, and the public understand the issues you're trying to solve and the trade-offs you're going to have to make. There's no perfect solution here, but there are definitely ways through it. You've already got in hand number 2, the update to the enrollment projections with the demographic studies. That is what we presented at the last meeting. Number 3, and this is a big one, making sure your capacities and your building inventory are right, and making sure that you're all and the county aligned with what those capacities are. The facility conditions assessment is going to tell you things like the life cycle and ages of your roofs, your HVAC handlers. Where are we strong and maybe where do we need some bolstered enhancements or investments in our capital facilities? Walking that through for step 5, preparing fiscal analysis. So those trade-offs of saying we can save this much operationally, will we need more bus routes? We can help answer those questions, and then the last part here, prioritizing the needs using a consensus-based rubric. We're trying to lay this out transparently so that you can begin to see the trade-offs. And something that was very encouraging in the information that you shared is, everyone has a perspective, but there seems to be a very tight grouping in both your issues and your values across board members, and that bodes very well for you all in making decisions as a team. So some sort of step back. I've shared a lot in a few minutes. I can ask you kind of high level. I'm going to go back here to sort of a summary slide, if you will. But I'm going to go one up to the issues first and then to the values and make sure that we have this. This is the data that was shared, I think, for the board and ultimately for chair. A conversation about, does this capture and reflect the issues that you're hoping to tackle in this work. And are there other things that we should be noting down as we try to knock out issues for Randolph County Schools?
Doesn't it? I think with the information that we got last session with you, with the projections, we have to look at it a little bit harder. I mean, we've got to make some difficult decisions. We've got to do what's best for Randolph County Schools in the long run. And we got to be fiscally responsible. I think every one of those things are, they, like you said, they do tie in with each other. So there's the areas that we do have to address.
So when you guys come into like, let's just say you're looking at another school system right down the road, example. All right, you come in and you hand them the same thing you handed us tonight, and you look at an area like, we're basically 4 areas. You have like Artsdale, Trinity, the northern, like in the Randleman, in the eastern, which all those areas seem to be a little more healthy than the southwest area, for its people. Mainly probably a lot to do with charter school, the hybrid school. They've been hit in that area more than anybody else. So when you look at the attendance in those schools, you look at URA, we talked about URA Ridge going down. And I haven't looked yet, and I don't know if it's on here, but when you, we have the elementary schools feeding southwest, like Farmer, Tabernacle, Seagrove, Southmont. Probably only one of those schools has what I would consider a healthy, supported, like for the building. You're utilizing that facility, which is Southmont. So let's just say you guys are in another school system and you're here, and do you ever come in and say, look, here's the bottom line. This whole area is in trouble. You might have to look at closing. I mean, if you're never gonna grow, let's just say if you have an elementary school here, it's 200 or 300, one here, and you show 10 years down the road, neither school's growing any, and maybe 4. You could be 3 of those 4 schools. Do you ever just come and say, look, here's the bottom line, it's a tough decision, but if you wanna be healthy and use your buildings, you have to close 2 or 3 schools. I mean,
That's right, yeah.
that's what I'm saying. I mean, I'm not trying to say it here, I'm trying not to get people going crazy. But when you're in trouble in a certain area, I mean, you spend a lot of money on, I mean, it's like if you got 2 people, I mean, in a warehouse with nothing in it, I mean, you spend a lot of money heating that warehouse and maintaining it, and you can combine it somewhere else if you were smart. I mean,
And
you
Gary,
could,
I think something too, these attendance lines, all of that, until the addition of Wheatmore and Providence Grove, I guess when they came in, were based on the 4 regional high schools.
yep,
And the feeder schools for those 4 regional high schools, they're gonna be some of your oldest schools. And that's why we need to look at those schools, utilizing the newer schools and the population that's available in those schools to maybe not look at having the older schools. I mean, that's a real possibility. We do have to look at it. And I just wondered if that's the area we should concentrate on, is look at the 4 regional high schools and drop back and look at the feeder patterns for those.
and then the biggest problem how do you get past, well, you know, we're talking about it in Liberty, you bought land. Basically, it may never be anything more than just replace an old school. It may not be for growth down the road. It could be, because I don't know if it's gonna grow. But how do you explain to people, look, you just have an old school, I guess if you ever build I mean, of course, you wouldn't be building a new school anywhere else, but if you can consolidate, how do you get past the history point? Because, you know, like, people seem to dwell on that. Hey, my mom went there, grandmother went there, boom, 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 you know, and now you expect us to move over here. I mean, that's tough, isn't it?
They're anchors. Right?
Yeah.
You've done 3-4 generations come through one school. And I said that out of, I'm a parent of 2 kids. When we go through and walk through a modern school, and we walk through a historic school, and being able to talk about, for anybody's student, not just one student, but anybody's student, what are we looking for with regards to what's that experience like? Remembering, when we talk about environmental health, safety, all of it, for kids, this is where they live their lives, right? And I name that out of, if you got a 70, 80, 90, 100-year-old school, if we haven't done a full renovation of it, I think you heard a little bit with some of the presentation earlier with regards to some of the other materials and conditions of our buildings. When we can bring them through our newer facilities, to take a look at where that's going, and also the vision for what does it mean to be a student in Randolph County School? What's the standard? If we've got a school that is loved and is a community asset in regards to its identity, there may be other things there that school facility, the building itself can serve. We've got examples across the state where its identity and its anchor is much bigger than its role in supporting 21st century learning. It's a bigger question, a little bit beyond my station at this moment, but just want to point out the experience of seeing what new schools actually look, smell, and feel like, and identifying there's put an education program in the building, and there are other things that that building might be able to do that could have an even greater impact on the community. So I'll put that out there for the conversation. But it is very much, I think that leads to that first level of community engagement. Do folks understand what problems you're facing and trying to solve? Uniquely in North Carolina, we don't get a lot of money from the state. Nobody's coming around and giving us blank checks to build schools. And so we are weighing out what can we do with what we have.
Do you guys come in like if you're, when the tough calls, tough decisions, and like, I don't know if you'd have public, if that's what you'd recommend. You gotta be transparent, I think, completely with people. And so this is what we're thinking, and why do you guys come in and help kind of explain then too, like,
That's
I know that's a bad job, that's where the superintendent gets tomatoes and whatever thrown at him, but, you know, you guys take the hit with us.
We're there with you. And sometimes Chick-fil-A takes the stick
Yeah.
out, so that helps.
I'd rather see a throw no. That's tough, I mean, in the real world.
I think if you're open to people.
Yeah, you gotta be honest, you gotta be
And
transparent.
just tell them, look, for instance, where I live, Farmer. I mean, it's been there for 100 years.
1992.
Well, I'm talking about even with the old ones, you know, moving forward, but, tell people this is our options. You know, it's not growing. Now, as farmers, do you wanna sell some land so they can build housing developments so you can keep school open? Or do you want, you know, do we need to look at other means? I mean, I think if you're just upfront with people, you know,
Just have to
it's,
do it, I mean, you know, you can't keep a building open with, a church can't survive with no members, I mean,
No.
it's the same thing with schools or business.
Yep.
I mean, business is teaching
Financially,
kids, but you
it's a
have to,
very hardship on us, and you can see that's why that's so important to all of us. You know, we want good buildings, we want them at capacity, we want them safe.
but it looks like, I think the
We
eastern
just have to
part,
make some hard decisions.
you know, I think it'll continue to probably do okay overall, don't you think, to a point with maybe, I mean, of course, Eastern Randolph needs to pick up some. And that's something you might tweak, but I think the southwest section is pretty much in trouble
it is.
now.
It is.
now, not later, it's in trouble.
It is, and the other thing is, when all these schools were built, there was no competition. You went to
Yeah.
public schools,
Yeah, that's true.
that's just how it was. There's no competition. Now, there's school choice, they have other options, which is fine, it's up to the parents. But now, because of that, and the growing need for that, or choice of that, public schools are shrinking. Traditional public schools are shrinking.
Yeah, it's just like when
Yeah.
Southwest was on the radar to build a new high school. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
before you ever heard anything about the charter school or, I mean, you just naturally, it was over. And bam, it's just something jumped right out there and sure cleaned it up for you.
But, going off what you're talking about, as far as the utilization of existing buildings and everything, and I don't know, it seems like we don't want to talk about this maybe in public right now or something, but, in the closing of some schools or in the building of new schools and what we do with the old ones, is there, for facilities and maintenance, issue, is there efficiencies that would be, if we had a facility on the eastern side of the county, as far as, instead of, because this building didn't get any bigger in many, many years, and I'm sure there's more people working this building, or, you know, these three buildings here, whatever, than there were 20 years ago. But is there efficiencies, and I guess this is maybe more for Marty, Dr. Gainey, but as far as having something like that on the eastern side of the county, that as far as to help, you know, so that people aren't traveling from here, from inside the gate, you know, to Liberty.
You know, I think you come down to the equipment and materials they would need. I mean, obviously it could be more efficient if you had satellite, you're talking about
Yeah.
satellite maintenance sites for.
Or not just, I mean, also this building as far as, you know, curriculum,
Professional
personnel,
development and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
I think you did, you've got to weigh that, it's just like what was said earlier about, if you close the school, you better make sure you know what cost you just put on transportation, because somebody's got to go get those students.
Right.
And that's one thing that's come up in one of our conversations was, you gotta look at the impact of closing the school on transportation, so you're ready to pay for that, pick up that cost as needed. Same token with that, if you made a satellite area, it'd be nice to have it would be really nice to have some kind of professional development center somewhere where everybody in the school system didn't have to come straight to here. We don't even have, we've got this room and that's about it. We use RCC a lot, but it's still right here. That would be great, but with that comes the utilities and the upfitting of it to make it what it needs to be. So I think the challenge is gonna be what the cost of that would be versus not having, you know,
It's kind of where the Trinity Tax District kills us. For
It really
example,
does.
with the UR Ridge, if we were to do something with that, they're 6 miles from Wheatmore. They're 26 miles to Southwest. It's ridiculous. I mean, there's got to be a workaround there somewhere where we wouldn't have to shift kids that far to get them to a school.
Is there such thing as a magic efficiency capacity, like 85%, or something like that? Is there such a thing?
Well, what we want to avoid is any scenario where a second grader moves into an elementary and you burst your HB 90 class size block. Right? And so leaving in some padding, the legislation allows for a +3 in any particular classroom level. I'm over answering your question. Yes, about 85 to 90% would be the sweet spot to give yourself some breathing room in the instance where a new neighborhood goes in and you don't have to go back to the drawing board because you drew it so tight.
I've got, and I don't know if you can do this or how you figure, but, okay. Let's just say, based on, if you're looking at an area where you may possibly close two or three schools or combine them, and you're messing with history, but let's just, I don't stick my whole size 13 in my mouth, but I'd love to just ask a question for an opinion. So, I'm gonna stick my size 13 right in my mouth. Let's just say we're in the southwest section, okay? And, URI Ridge was in question to close. Not saying that, but that's the newer building of all, you know, bigger, newer building. But if you're gonna, how do you determine, I mean, I know that would be us, but make it practical. Is it practical to keep the newer building even if you had to, I mean, based on an old building, to spend money like down the road to like retrofit it where it would work? I mean, what do you think on deals like that? It could cost a lot of money to, you know, like if you were gonna make a school like from middle to elementary or middle to high, it costs money to do that, you know, like what do you do? I mean, do you keep the newer school or do you, what do you think on it?
Well, and let me just restate the question so I get it right.
And I mean, it might take years to recoup that, what you spend.
Part of it would, I do believe, when we're talking grade level skips from elementary to middle to high, right? Everything from the fit and finish and the fixtures in the bathroom, all the way through the, you know, the built-ins.
It's a lot of money.
It can be. And the athletic facilities of high school, as we were talking about, most of the land at our high schools is dedicated to athletics. So it would really, and this is, I'm gonna stick my size 10 in here and say it would depend on, you know, ultimately I think you have to be precise about which program and which school facility. There is a whole area of adaptive reuse. And when I say adaptive reuse, we're saying, here's what we built it for. This is what we need. This is our best shot. And we're gonna work with architects to make sure we get that dialed in and right. And we're gonna adapt it and reuse it in a new, better way. That's very much something that we would encourage, particularly if you've got the sunk cost in some otherwise state-of-the-art facilities. You just need to modernize them and or adapt them. But to say on one school, I would be cautious on that because it really will depend.
But you could get us those costs.
So
if we gave
that's
you
part
the
of the
parameters of it.
What did you say, Tom?
You could get us that cost
Right.
if we,
So that's where we would work with the district and other, we would work with we have recommendations on architects that are state licensed and the rest to make sure we boil the water and get you good information on that kind of thing.
What's your magic number? Like, I'm gonna use yours. What's your magic number if you look at a school, the numbers, what percentage, and you look at it now, and you look at it 10 years down the road, 8 to 10 years down the road, what you see number-wise? What's your magic number of thinking it's time to make a decision? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
With the tipping point, or
huh?
like the tipping point of,
Yeah, when do you say, look, it's time to consider maybe looking at consolidating a couple schools or closing a school? Like, if you look at an area and you have 250, 300 kids in that school and it's 600 capacity, and you look on this list and we see 8 or 10 years down the road, still 300 kids or less, what's the magic, what's the call? What do you think?
well, I think geography plays a big role in this too. Because if we're gonna take them from school.
Say that again.
Geography, the map is gonna matter a lot.
location.
That's where we'd wanna walk it out. There's a term I'll use, cost benefit, right? This is what you get, this is what it's gonna cost to do it. And we can walk that through with you in every way to look at it, to be transparent about it. The biggest thing that I wanna emphasize that our group brings is transparency. We're third-party state employees that are here truly on your behalf. And so, you know, I say that to say we can stand by our work. We've been around for 40 years, we're not going anywhere. And the part about that would be we want to make sure to bring you the best information so you can look at it from every angle and have your administration ask all the tough questions that we know they will.
Matt, to Mr. Cutler's point, you'd want to be careful you didn't go to a site that had a cap in case enrollment did grow, because to Mr. Lanier's point, these talking about one part of the county that, what if land started selling, development started happening? Some of these numbers could change. And we've got one zone, Mr. Cutler's pointed out, I think multiple board members are talking about it, we've got one zone that's kind of stagnant right now. So you gotta be careful that you don't combine into a school that can't grow, it's capped, before you wind up building another school you really don't need later if growth
2 or 3
happens.
farms could change the whole world.
What'd you say?
2 or 3 farms
Yeah, and then
selling.
but then we're back to where, so what if you did some consolidation to somewhere that we couldn't even put, we couldn't renovate, we couldn't do addition, we couldn't put more classrooms. All of a sudden, 3 big farms sell.
That's a
Use
great
land.
point.
Now we're in trouble, because now we're back trying to build a school that we may not totally need all of it. And now we're back to a half-empty school. It's brand new, which is what, we've got at least one half-empty school that I still consider brand new. It's, so, which is the one we talked about earlier. So we just gotta, I think it's gotta, you gotta have room, because, we've got a couple historical things that are gonna put parameters on our school, on our decisions. So, and I appreciate your interest in what's going on with what actually is going on here, and not making us, I think one of the things I would say is, we don't wanna be a Raleigh. We don't wanna be a Charlotte. We wanna be Randolph County School System. And I can tell you, that's the conversation that's been going on a lot more with Dale than with him and me, but, I just wanna make that point. As superintendent, that's what we wanna be, and we've got a lot of history, and all 7 of them have a lot of history they can bring to the table.
And
You know, the thing in Artsdale, Trinity people, they'll say, one thing they found out, kids will sell the farm. They will definitely sell.
Well, I also caution, board members, we've got some tougher decisions to make, because we don't have the latitude and we don't have the piece that growing 4,000 kids in a year during recession time and 8,000 kids during non-recession time. We don't have that. When you have that, like some urban school systems do, then you can't miss, because then you're gonna fill those schools up. And maybe the only question is student assignment lines. There's a lot of deeper questions here, in my opinion.
I know, I was thinking, going back on history also, as long as we are really thinking about the planning, trying to maintain that 85 to 90% capacity level, I think we'll be okay.
And we've got some history now, because we've said, I mean, it's not 85, 90, but we've
Yeah.
said no one's going into a school
That's right.
if it's 95% or more. We've been saying that for
Mhm.
12 years now. We got those, so, so we bump it down a little bit, but we've got some history there. We won't let anybody be reassigned into a school they're not assigned to with their if they're 95% or more, so.
And how reliable is when we're looking at the development, how reliable is it on these numbers of proposed units and lots? Like, some of them are really big, and some of them are in areas where, we don't have big numbers, and that could definitely make a huge impact. But like, how reliable is that?
And let me restate that just from the perspective of, when you've got an enrollment projection and you've got neighborhoods coming online, how reliable is?
Yeah, like for instance, I'll just say in Ramsor, there's a possibility for 620 homes or something to be built. That's a lot. And Ramsor, that seems to, it can hardly, manage what we've got right now. So what's the probability that that's really gonna happen, that we can make a plan and say, okay, we really need to have boots on the ground to make sure that we're ready for this explosion if it was to come.
Indeed. I'm gonna peel back the onion just a little bit.
Yeah.
So, is there a particular neighborhood that you're thinking about?
Well, looking at, for instance, the Reed Creek for 520.
Okay,
That's big.
okay.
What was that, Dan Shannon?
It's like, the road you turn to go to south to Sarms, like off of 64, so the next little area is Reed Creek right there.
Okay.
So I'm assuming it's that land that's in between the road and Reed Creek that would go,
Would that be?
and that would be
Eastern?
old farmland, yeah, that would be Eastern Randolph in
Is that-
terms. And Ramsor.
Not to skip her question.
No.
Is that pretty typical for a county? It seems, I mean, I don't know, maybe from the uneducated view, it seems like we got a lot of things approved in the county
Yeah.
and nothing built. And is
Right.
that typical across the state as far as,
It
things like
does,
that
there's a
go?
couple layers here.
Okay. I won't get away from her question.
Yeah,
I didn't get it, but,
very
yeah,
good.
okay.
And I know, I'm not asking you to be able to predict the future because you don't know, but like some of these
Well, that's what
already
we're paying
have.
for them to do.
Already have, no, but like in stone stuff, like some of these already have houses already in place or coming in, you know, they have like capacity of 65 and there's 42 already come into place. But you know, there's a lot that have zero, like, you know, what's the reality that somebody's actually gonna start, you know, grading and putting footings in the ground?
So, I'm gonna ask that we not talk about one particular development.
Right.
If you have specific development questions, Mr. Godfrey is
Right,
going to be
okay,
go to. I'll give it a high level
Okay.
overview and then invite them to layer on if that's helpful.
sure,
And go with Mr. Burgess's question to kind of wrap together.
yeah,
Best thing that we can do when we're building, I'm just gonna say, we're gonna build a neighborhood with 500 homes and they're single family detached. We're going to study the rates of certificate of occupancy. So the time from the neighborhood's been approved from a planning and development perspective up till the time when there are rooftops and it's taxable and someone's got a car in the driveway, or however they
Yeah.
get there. That time of certificate of occupancy, in addition to, then we're asking the question, well, who's living there and how many folks are coming out that might be enrolled in Randolph County schools? In that way, we use what's called a student generation rate, and we match that rate of, let's say, 500 single-family neighborhood homes with another neighborhood like that, to get a good sense of, if that other neighborhood, let's say, had 200 homes, but 100 students were coming out, the student generation rate would be 0.5, about half a student per household. We're then able to map that based on housing type and geography and say, well, Reeves Creek is across the street, that's pretty good, we've got a real good comparison group here. And you do that cascading across all of the neighborhood developments that we're talking about for the whole county. And so, two parts: one, the rates of certificate of occupancy, and then secondly, the student generation rates. So the CO, certificate of occupancy, is gonna give you your rate, how quickly that's coming online, and then the second layer, your student generation rates is saying, and when it does open up and the mail is delivered, who's likely to live there? I wanted to also earmark with Mr. Burgess's question, and a little bit with what Dr. Keeney was sharing earlier. If you look at the maps of developments, developers love security, and the best way to know that is that my competitor is building across the street, right? So you're seeing spatial clustering of neighborhoods coming online, and when you do that, and actually just from Hillsborough all the way into Ashboro, you can see the signs up on 85 and 40 of new neighborhoods popping up or additional apartment complexes. You're in the thoroughfare of a much larger economic trend in North Carolina. The certainty of which, I do not gamble, but I would say we're trying to bring all the data to it using the methods that we talked about, Ms. Whitaker. So, looking at certificates of occupancy and comparable student generation rates historically. Pause there, make sure, did that answer your question in a way of?
yeah,
Okay.
I
Also
understand
just
how you
check
got
to
that
see-
number.
I'm getting head nods up here, so I guess they're okay.
Have you ever worked with a school system doing this type of study when their school system is all open enrollment?
Entirely open enrollment? I cannot think in my mind of the only open enrollment schools that we're familiar with, and I'll leave Wake County in the early 2010s aside because that's a whole different thing. That's another night and another presentation. Minneapolis, Minnesota has open enrollment. I'd invite my colleagues, Dr. Ganey, if there's other open enrollment districts in the state. I don't have any. Now we have, there's a midpoint there, Mr. Cutler, as far as what we call regions of eligibility. Particularly if you had like application-based programs and you wanted to say, hey, if you live in the southwest portion of the county, we've got options for you in this region. So you take the broader map and subdivide it so that within those regions you've got everything you need. But that's about the closest that I've seen.
Can
to interrupt the conversation because it's gonna keep going. There's been a lot of work done since last meeting to this meeting with stuff you guys wanted to see. Can you or Dale make sure the board members, now, we did 4 copies of every map, 4 copies of each map. We didn't do 6, but if everybody wants their own, we can do that. Can one of you make sure, because that was one of the board's requests when they left here last time or the meeting ended. Can you make sure everybody knows what they're looking at there? I know a lot of board members are looking at them offhand, because it's the AT tax zone, it's the school zones, I just wanna make sure you guys know what you have. Because we were trying to figure out what to give you hard copy today, and I don't know, I don't want to, Jack, but I don't want us to go out here and y'all wonder, well, what were these things? Because I think you've got the maps on your Chromebook too.
Yeah.
Hey, good evening, Brian Godfrey, Land Use Planner. We have a series of maps, and they can be a lot of information to digest. Mr. Brinkley mentioned there's PDFs available for your computers as well. We certainly recommend that. The primary map is showing your existing or current attendance zones in a variety of solid colors for the elementaries. And then in a solid line, there's a heavy red and yellow to delineate the feeders for high school and middle. The high school and middle are identical except for the southwest, where you have your acreage. In addition, the residential developments will be noted with blue housing icons, paired with, in blue text, the ID key for those. And then if you were to see that development on the map, development number 24, you can refer to the spreadsheet to find the information for that. Happy to walk through any of those or answer any specific questions about developments. Can also accept feedback for those. We also have focus maps that show the Archdale Trinity area as well as the tax district for that. And again, in solid colors, we have blue for elementary, yellow for middle, and red for high. That'll be both of the attendance zone lines as well as the school sites themselves. Happy to answer any questions.
Question for the board is, we have 4 sets out there, but every board member like their own set. So, we can do 3 more sets if somebody will agree to make sure you go out of here with a set, so we're not trying to figure out what everybody's got. 4 of you take a set with you, and then we can fill in the other 3. We'll get those, because you gotta turn around pretty quick, right?
Couple days.
Were there any questions about kind of the best practices or our recommendations here, community engagement in the planning process? We talked some tonight. The enrollment projections you've done and on the residential development side. The school capacity and the conditions of the schools, that's a big one, right? That's gonna help you make some informed choices. And then the fiscal analysis and that consensus rubric, that's trying to be transparent about those cost benefits that you're weighing out. Any feedback on what we've covered in the presentation? Any questions come up, anything like that?
All the email, this is on their email, last time was both boards, and the maps are on their email, right? So you've got the maps, but we'll get you hard copies, if y'all just let us know who's not taking the set. Can I say one more thing, Matt? I know the word open, the 2 words, open and enrollment came up, okay? The one thing that people don't talk about, and I was involved in this, you gotta make hard decisions on that, what you wanna provide transportation or not. Because I was involved in a window of time where that happened, and there was transportation promised, and you know what I'm talking about, the transportation cost overnight almost overtook the whole system. It was huge. So I think that's a conversation that has to be with that if you ever get into that discussion.
It's It's just something we have to keep in the back of our
Yeah.
minds, because you never know what will come from Raleigh.
Yeah.
No,
The,
And you also never know what we'd be told we have to do with it.
that's right.
And, but I'm telling you, open enrollment and guaranteeing transportation.
It's not something I support, it's just,
we've only heard it be successful in instances where when it's more dense urban, like a Boston or Minneapolis, and there's a lot of public transit.
yeah.
Because otherwise, your bus drivers alone, it explodes.
Yeah, kill us.
I can't imagine working in a rural county
Well,
as many in North Carolina like that.
there's one rural and urban in the east, and for some reason I hear they have open everybody but one high school. So I gave him that name to look and see what that is.
Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Do you need any,
No, I think we've got some decisions to make as a board. I'll keep talking to the board about some things. I think the facility use, facility assessments are huge. I think that's another piece that we need to look at. All right, board members, that's all we have, unless y'all have anything else for the work session.